If you're not familiar with the Office of Science that Dr. Kong has been directing for the last 20 years, it's essentially the premier research arm of the Department of Energy and beyond. So energy is obviously the big umbrella, but under that, there are things like materials, AI, basic energy physics, chemistry, environmental research. So the direction that Dr. Kong sets is far-reaching in terms of the scientific community. So her vision and her ability to set the direction not only for the major research initiatives, but for every faculty member like myself, being an assistant professor back when she started in the Department of Energy 20 years ago. It really gave us the compass on which to see what is the future of science and engineering. And so I will just say a few things about Dr. Kong's career. So she holds her master's and PhD from Cornell University. She started at DOE, as I mentioned before, 20 years ago, and quickly rose through the ranks. I also think that having a leader who is steady within an institution in a position where you have the ability to affect lasting change is something that Dr. Kong has brought to her role. And she has pioneered initiatives ranging from physics all the way to quantum computing. So she was one of the pioneers for the Office of Science and the National Quantum Initiative. And this is an area where we are investing, and Dr. Choi has made a significant investment this year. So we're very excited to hear Dr. Kong's vision about that as well. She has received numerous accolades, including the Presidential Meritorious Executive Rank Award, the Distinguished Executive Rank Award, and I'm sure a lot more is coming in the future. And today, she will share with us her insights on science for energy, which is obviously a timely and important exploration of how we can tackle the energy challenges of the 21st century. Obviously here at Mizzou with the Center of Energy Innovation, it's one of our priorities as a university, and we look to Dr. Kong to hear her vision about this area today. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Kong. Thank you.
Please, come on up. I also want to introduce Representative Kent Hayden, who is here with us, and he has provided so much support for the university, not only on appropriations, but also for capital projects. So thank you very much for being here. Dr. Kong.
Good morning. It's such an honor and pleasure for me to be here today. I would like to especially thank President Choi for this prestigious opportunity. In preparing for my trip here, I had the privilege to read about what Mizzou, the really long and distinguished history, the university and the system. But I'm also really, really impressed by your distinguished academic and research programs, but probably most importantly, this very exciting, forward-leaning Mizzou Forward vision, and also the trajectory that President Choi has set for the school. I'm really feeling very, very privileged to be able to be here today to share with you some of our thoughts on the future of science for energy. So talking about history, I thought I'd start by sharing with you a little bit about the distinguished history and also heritage of the Department of Energy. Many of you may know that we actually were born out of the Manhattan Project era as an all-out effort to develop the world's very first nuclear weapons. This was a project that's shrouded in secrecy. But at the same time, we needed to pull the world's best talent together, the best team of scientists to race against the clock to accomplish this almost impossible feat. And at the same time, we also need to build this massive research and development apparatus, the massive logistic and also infrastructure in order to accomplish this feat. And that essentially formed the basis of the very first national laboratories. For those of you who may have seen the movie Oppenheimer, the Los Alamos National Laboratory was actually one of the very first few laboratories that were established during the Manhattan Project era. And Dr. Oppenheimer was indeed the very first director for Los Alamos National Laboratory. Along with Los Alamos, which is located in New Mexico, we also had two other laboratories, the Argonne National Laboratory near the suburb of Chicago, Illinois, and also Oak Ridge National Laboratories in Tennessee, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. These locations were selected due to their isolation, but also reachable. But at the end of the World War II, the nation was left grappling with this massive infrastructure that was left, and also the talent, the people, and the instrumentation associated with this national treasure. So Congress passed the Atomic Energy Act in 1946 and created an Atomic Energy Commission. And that was actually the first time we actually transitioned the control of these national laboratory, national capabilities from military control to civilian control. In the next couple years, we actually have seen the blossoming of transitioning from nuclear to nuclear weapons development to civilian nuclear energy development, from nuclear processes, nuclear reactor technologies, and also use of nuclear materials. But something happened in 1973. Many of you may not be old enough to remember. That was when the Arab oil embargo hit. The nation was shocked by the oil embargo and the oil crisis. So Congress then again acted again and created the Energy Research and Development Administration, which is a new energy R&D agency, which was the predecessor of DOE, and that is when we actually expand our mission beyond the more traditional nuclear technologies to areas such as renewable energy, to synthetic fuels, to transmission, to conservation, and so forth. And that essentially is the basis of the Department of Energy that we have today. But looking back, if you can trace our route all the way back to the Manhattan Project, it was essentially a very first big science experiment. Fortunately, it was a successful experiment with this impossible feat that we accomplished in such a record time in defeating the adversaries in developing the nuclear weapons program. But at the same time, it's that spirit to drive innovation, to, as President Choi mentioned, how do we marshaling the talent, resources, and knowledge of the whole community to impact and solve grand science and technology challenges that continue to motivate what we have today in the Department of Energy. Okay, so essentially that is what the Department of Energy today is to ensure America's security prosperity by addressing its energy, environment, and nuclear challenges through the transformative science and technology solutions. We cannot do it alone. We need partners. We need partners such as Mizzou. Every single one of you, we need your support and you need your partnership for us to really tackle some of these very ambitious but also formidable challenges in record time. Almost similar to the existential threat that we were facing as a nation in the Manhattan Project era. So let me go through some of the challenges that we face today and some of the examples. But before that, I also wanted to share with you this very proud R&D apparatus that we started almost 70 years ago, starting from the Los Alamos National Laboratory. Currently, we actually have 17 DOE national laboratories that are spread amongst the different states. And these institutions continue to be, some will even call it the heartbeat of our DOE system, but I would call them the engine of innovation. And I'm hoping that these institutions could be a resources for every single one of you at Mizzou to partner with and utilize the resources from facilities to capability, or partner with the experts at these 17 national laboratories, which continue to drive innovation and drive discoveries. So let me then tell you a little bit about the Office of Science, which is the office that I lead. So if you consider DOE as a big corporation, we will be the basic research arm of that big corporation. Our mission is to discover drive the discovery of scientific discoveries and also major scientific tools to transform our understanding of nature, but also advance our energy, economic, and national security mission. The nation and the department looks to us to pave that broad knowledge foundation to not only advance the scientific frontiers, but also spur innovation so we can generate future generation of energy technologies and also to secure the national security and also ensure national economic prosperity. This is a very large program. Our annual budget is slightly over $8.2 billion. In fact, we're the nation's largest supporter of basic research and physical sciences. This is a program with very large footprint. We have a direct support of 29,000 researchers. I hope there are some of you, and hopefully we'll grow the population in Mizzou even further across 300 institutions and all 17 DOE laboratories. We are also the proud owner of 10 of the 17 national laboratories. We also support 28 national user facilities. These are from high-performance computers to X-ray and neutron sources. In fact, we actually partner with MER as a really leading producer of medical isotopes, and the application could be even further expanded beyond that. So this is a very large programs, and that we also aim to further expand our partnerships, especially with institutions such as Mizzou, because we really need all the workforce to help us really expand and address our mission. So next, let me quickly summarize some of the energy challenges that we have seen. Traditionally, we have seen that access to affordable and reliable energy sources has always been the cornerstone of the world's prosperity and also continued economic growth. And there's not surprises in the United States as well, as you can see that over the 400 years, the US energy consumption has also evolved from the very early days where we rely on human and animal powers to the modern day today, where the high-tech economy is driven by a multiple of energy sources. But if you look across the history, you will actually see that our energy consumptions are largely driven by a few key technologies, inventions that were actually decades, if not century old, from the steam engines to the incandescent lamps. Fortunately, I think we are phasing out most of the incandescent lamps, which is extremely inefficient. The four-stroke combustion engine, we still have combustion engine cars. The intercontinental railroad system and the highway systems. So these are essentially decades-old inventions, centuries-old and infrastructures that are still driving the energy reliance that we have. And even though we do have newer inventions such as lithium-ion batteries and solid-state lighting, heat pumps, and so forth, but overall, this nation is still heavily relying on fossil fuels, 85%, as of even today. So to understand the energy challenges, I think it's probably important for us to understand, oh, sorry, I'm not advancing I'm so very sorry. I was advancing on my slide, but not. So, very sorry. But let's look at, maybe I should look at the screen instead of my computer. So one thing that we should really, to really understand more about the energy challenges that we have, I think it's very important for us to really understand how the nation uses energy. So I chose 2015. This is the year that the US has used 94.3 quads. Quads as an energy unit stands for quadrillion BTU. A quad is also equivalent to 293 billion kilowatt hours, also 183 million barrels of petroleum, 38.5 tons of coal or 980 billion cubic feet of natural gas. So it's a lot of energy that we use as a nation. But the sources of energy is actually represented on the left-hand side, and the width of the different sources actually represent the proportion. You can see very thick lines of petroleum, very thick lines of coal, natural gas, and some nuclear. Some of the renewable sources, solar, hydro, wind, geothermal, continues to be relatively small. And these sources then, some that get directly converted to electricity and then feed into the use sector, which is shown on the right-hand side from residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation. So I can see some of the sources will then produce electricity from coal to natural gas, nuclear, but then petroleum would directly feed into transportation. And on the right-hand side is the waste and the use portion. And interestingly, out of the 94 quads, we actually only use 31 of them, and the other 63 quads were wasted. So this is really an area that could also use some innovation. But I chose 2015 to show as the baseline because this is a very important year. This is the year the U.S. started to actually produce more oil and gas and becoming less reliant on foreign sources. And I think thanks to a large part to fracking, unconventional oil sand, oil shale, and so forth. So this is a very important source of diversifying the domestic sources. In addition to expanding the renewable sources, the domestic production of oil and gas has also allowing the U.S. to really change the dynamics of relying heavily on foreign sources of fossil fuels to developing local domestic sources. But at the same time, we have also seen the petroleum, even though we have a population growth, we have even more cars on the road, the petroleum consumption is actually slightly declining as to a large degree to car efficiency, actually driving down the over total petroleum consumption. And the electricity is also relatively steady. So this is really a very important direction through decades of investment through the Department of Energy and other federal agencies and also partnering with private sectors. We're slowly but surely driving innovations, not only expanding the renewable solar, nuclear, hydro, but also through a certain degree the domestic production of fossil fuels. If we can advance that to 2022, yeah. So maybe you can go back to 2022. I do want to note several things. One is that in 2022, we actually only saw a very slight increase in total energy consumption, even though the population continues to grow in the United States. But we're also starting to see the expansion of renewable sources. Solar actually was 4 times higher in 2015 than in 2015, and similar growth in wind and geothermal as well. And we're starting to see the swapping and the lower reliance on coal and being offset by the growth in natural gas. And since natural gas is cleaner than coal, it is actually overall producing less CO2 emissions as a whole for the whole nation. So this is overall a very encouraging trend. But however, if you compare what we are today versus in 1950, if we go on to the next slide, this actually shows in 1950, the U.S. population in 2022 compared to 50 were about twice as many people in 1950. However, the total energy consumption is 3 times than in 1950. We actually, despite all the energy efficiencies that we have gained, we actually use more energy per person than in 1950. The primary energy for transportation is 4 times that of 1950. And what's really stunning is the electricity generation. And that's in large part driven by a lot of the electrification that we're seeing And also what's very concerning is if you have read all the AI data centers gonna even drive our energy demand, electricity demand further in the future. So, there's no or little to no imported petroleum then, and also there's the use and wasted energy about the same. So all in all, this really paints a rather alarming picture for the US. How do we really keep energy sources as reliable, affordable, and also efficient so we can ensure the prosperity and also national security for us as a nation really continues to be a major driver to drive our mission in the Department of Energy. So the next slide, please. So I want to give kind of two examples to illustrate how scientific discoveries, innovation are really the key to a vibrant and affordable, secure energy future. And the first example I would like to give is actually in energy storage. I know that that's one of the emphasis of the Mizzou Forward related initiatives. So we as an agency continue to support really a broad range of energy technologies. And in Office of Science, our emphasis in basic research. However, I would like to choose energy storage because it really is a weak link to the whole energy system, and as shown in the next slide. So if you consider several aspects of energy storage, take grid as an example. Grid, we need grid to be resilient, especially when you're hit with power outages, whether it's from natural disaster or for whatever reasons. But the current grid is actually not very resilient unless we can really have the energy storage that can tie you over not just hours, but potentially days. And also there's the need to really, especially you have peak demands when you are hit either by a cold, extreme cold event or extreme hot events. How do we really use energy storage as a way to even the load for low peak leveling and so forth? And another very major driver for energy storage is that we all know a lot of these renewable energies are not constant sources. We don't always have sun shining or wind blowing, and how do we really capture these excess electricity being generated by renewable sources? And the opposite problem is in nuclear, where it's a constant source, but the load demand is not constant, so we ended up wasting a lot of electricity. How do we capture the electricity under a longer term duration is really a major driver for grid. And not to mention transportation, and many of you, if you own an electric vehicles, the range anxiety, how to really produce EV with batteries that not only last longer, not just a couple years, but also can allow you to drive hundreds of miles without worrying about running out of the battery charge. Safety is another big concern. And also, how do we power your power electronics instead of changing your phone every couple years when you have longer lasting batteries? So the next slide, please. The current dominant choice is lithium-ion batteries. That's in your Tesla. That's in many of the transportation. The batteries actually seemingly very simple operation. It only has three components. You have the two electrodes, the anode and the cathode, and also the electrolyte. Batteries store the energy in the electrodes. So when the battery is discharged, essentially convert the chemical energy into electricity going through the outside circle. It's seemingly a very simple operation, but when you charge and discharge a battery, actually literally change the electrode structures. And that leads to premature failure that could also lead to safety issues and also degrading. So how do we really understand at the molecular level, atomic level, the materials and chemistry that underpin the lithium-ion batteries is a very fruitful areas of research. But in addition to looking at improving lithium-ion batteries, there's also other technologies. Next slide, please. We're also working on lithium-sulfur batteries. Sulfur is definitely a lot cheaper and more abundant than lithium-ion batteries, where the lithium, the cathodes normally are containing rare earths such as cobalt, and other critical materials and minerals. But lithium-ion sulfur battery also has its own challenge. Another option that we're working on is the multivalent battery. So for every single ions, you can carry 2 or more electrons, so you can actually double or triple the energy or power density, which is also a very desirable alternative to lithium-ion batteries. But both technologies also have their shortcomings. And that's when we think AI could really come to an aid. Let's turn to the next slide. So this is a very, no, actually, sorry, let me say something about the flow battery. This is another option that we're working on. This is, instead of storing the energy in the electrodes, we can actually store the energy in the electrolyte. So essentially, you can separate the power and the energy. So by increasing the electrolyte, you can then increase the energy. And also, if you increase the size, you can actually increase the power density as well. So this is yet another very promising concept that we're investing in. But all of these are still very, very early stage in development, and also will require additional investment. But this is the slide that I really want to focus on. This is a very exciting development that a recent partnership one of our labs had with Microsoft. As we may know, these battery materials, the electrodes, could have multiple combinations. If you look at the periodic table, essentially you could have millions of billions combination of different elements. So choosing the one key element composition could be a needle in the haystack, and that's when AI technology could really come to your aid. And this is a partnership that in only 2 weeks' time, Microsoft's Azure quantum elements platform, coupled with the AI technologies, actually has screened out of 32.6 million candidates. Out of those, they identified 23 promising candidates for them to then synthesize electrodes the electrolytes and electrodes that can actually reduce the consumptions of lithium in this lithium sodium-based electrolytes. And this is really a very impressive advancement, and shows tremendous promise to scientific discovery. If we can apply the similar type of approaches to other fields, just imagine the kind of the time saving. Normally, new technologies, new materials would take at least a decade for discovery to the upscales in manufacturing and entering into applications. So if AI could come to our aid in really accelerating and shortening that innovation cycle, it's really a very important investment that we should all be paying attention to. And that is a very important development, which I'll come back to the AI topic later. So let's move on quickly. I know that I think we're probably running out of time. Yeah, okay. So next slide is, I've already talked about the aqueous flow batteries. But fundamental research is just the first step. We need to, can you advance to the next slide, please? Along the same flow battery concept, having breakthroughs at the bench scale is not enough. You need to be able to upscale them to the mid-scale, and then being able to demonstrate that at a commercial scale. And that is what this slide is about. So we have worked with this team at Argonne National Laboratory to try to identify ultra-low cost flow batteries made from earth-abundant material from water, oxygen, and sulfur. And that also will then ensure that we have a domestic, vibrant supply chain, low materials cost. That's really the only chance that we can beat some of the lower cost production from abroad, including China. So with that kind of design criteria in mind, we actually designed this iron air flow batteries. And it was tested at the bench scale supported by our office. But then through additional funding, they actually spin off into a company called Form Energy. And in September 2024, a partnership with the state of West Virginia, Form Energy actually will be producing, constructing a 1.5 megawatt iron air battery pilot for the Great River Energy Program. I think this is really a good success story, and institutions such as Mizzou could be that translator because we support the fundamental research here, but your connection to industry, to your local community could be that translational vehicle to translate low TRL technology readiness advances upscale to eventually develop into application. But what's probably most importantly, you would then have a knowledgeable workforce to be able to support the future of these technologies as they are being deployed and continue to innovate as needed. So let me then move on to the second part of my talk example, which is on AI. Next slide, please. Thank you. So AI has already been mentioned earlier and it's throughout the conversation. But AI does not exist alone. AI, microelectronics, computing are really the confluence of these advances could really drive the future of science, energy, and including national security. And that is what I'm going to share with you in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. So computing essentially is the middle name of our science because we rely so much on computing in driving the scientific innovation. But computing is not just a scientific adventure. It's also all around us, where we're using the powering your personal devices, computers, even driving the Uber and all these Internet of Things. Computing is really all around us, but the energy use of computing is growing. As I shown earlier, compared to 1950, our electricity is already 14 times higher than then, and it's projected to grow even further with the new technologies because we essentially are needing computing for communications, for the infrastructure, and this is really unsustainable if we do not really get the energy demand under control. We also have a very selfish or parochial view because our high-performance computing is extremely energy hungry. And in order for us to keep pace with the scientific competition from around the globe, we need to be able to support scientific computing that is also energy efficient. And that is really a major driver for us to really consider microelectronics, AI, high-performance computing in one integrated system. So the next slide, please. So the reason that I mentioned that we are very interested in the energy efficiency is because we are actually the world's, we own the world's two fastest computer. They are called the exascale computer. It operates 10 to the 18 floating point operations per second. It's very, 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 very fast. So, and we need this very fast computer so we can secure whether it's nuclear weapon design or design the next generation of energy batteries or fuel cells or biofuels. So these are the two systems, one at Oak Ridge National Laboratory and also one at called Frontier, and the one at Argonne's called Aurora. But achieving this, the next slide, please. Achieving these exascale computers, the most challenging part is actually the energy consumption part. When we're trying to build the exascale computers, people are saying that you will likely need a nuclear power plant to power these computers because the energy consumption is just projected to be unsustainable using the existing technologies. We actually beat the expectations in driving the energy efficiency to be 200 times more efficient than the previous innovation. And this is really a combination of new materials, new algorithms, and also partnership with vendors. And we believe this is kind of direction that we need to go as a nation. We cannot just use today's technology in driving the next generation of AI data centers. We need to infuse energy efficiency, new material, new chips design in order to drive AI, because AI is just going to change not just my life, your life, everybody's lives. AI is going to change almost as significant as industrial revolutions. I was just giving an example earlier, looking at our cell phones. Most of the time, they're sitting in your pocket idle, right? So if you have an active AI algorithm, while they are sitting idle, they can actually do a lot of work sitting idle. They can answer your email. Well, you will ultimately be the one sending the email, but they can, in the background, doing a lot of work if you really train these AI models and having the computing powers to be able to support that. That would mean tremendous increase in productivity, innovation, and discoveries. You can really harvest that innovation. So let's go on to the next slide. So AI is actually not new to DOE. We're actually starting to invest in AI adjacent science and technology in the 1960s. But then what DOE has done is that these exascale computers are really designed to harvest these AI powers and AI training. What's so important is these large language models to be able to harvest all these data and being able to train and have them do work that a regular computer will not be able to do. And what DOE is investing is the hardware design and also basic research to innovate AI techniques and applications. So next slide, please. So I'm really excited to share with you, we have an initiative called FAST, Frontiers in Artificial Intelligence for Science, Security, and Technology. So FAST will build on the world's most powerful supercomputers and also the integrated AI system. People may ask, why DOE? We're working with NSF. Punch is a good collaborator, but there are some unique strengths in DOE. We have tons of AI-ready data. Our 17 laboratories, our 28 user facilities are generating terabytes of data every day. And these are a treasure trove of information that we can harvest and then generate new knowledge, new innovation, and new discoveries. We also have the infrastructure and the platform. We have ability to safeguard these very precious resources and data, safe, secure, trustworthy, privacy-preserving AI model and system. We also have a ton of use cases. And this is an area that we really would like to partner with institutions such as Mizzou. You bring use applications to us for us to then collectively use these large language models to drive innovation. I will give you some of the examples that we're already doing, but let me just quickly run through. I know that time is running short. The next slide, please. We will be using FAST to advance national security, to scientific discovery, energy challenges, to develop technical expertise necessary for AI governance. We have to be able to know, how do we protect, how do we then democratize the access to the community. We also need to attract and build a talented workforce. Let me just skip the next slide and then go to some examples. So this is an example I would like to share with you. Very exciting, actually won the 2022 Gordon Bell Prize in computing. And I don't know, many of you, Gordon Bell Prize, sort of like the Oscar of supercomputing. So we won the #1 in this Gordon Bell Prize. So what has Gordon Bell recognized is that Argonne researchers actually are able to train a lot of large language models, the genomic data. They actually train and develop a genome large language model so they can not only analyze the genomes of different variants of COVID, but identify these variants of concern. And this is a very important part. Once you understand what kind of variants could actually be even more transmissive or harder to tackle, then it actually provides some paths for us to then devise countermeasures, vaccines, therapeutics to counter that. So this is actually a very important step, but also have broad and wide implication. The next slide, please. This is the one that I already talked about, but identifying some electrode is just the first step. There's the whole battery system, the anode, the electrodes, the electrolytes, but there are also many, many other energy technologies. Materials are the linchpin underpinning a lot of the advances, but also prohibiting many other advances as well. So partnering with Microsoft and one of our labs, actually allowing us to use AI to discover new material, new chemistry, hopefully to leapfrog the current generation of energy technologies. And the next slide, it's actually a very important partnership between Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and BridgeIO Bio. I don't know how many of you actually are involved in cancer research. We know that RAS and the RAF are these mutating genes often found in cancer such as colon cancer, thyroid cancer, and some well-known, very hard to treat cancers even. But what the partnership between Lawrence Livermore and BridgeIO did is that they actually are able to identify these mutating genes and then devise cancer drugs to then counter these mutations and as a very effective treatment. And this is actually a very exciting development because it's already entering into clinical trial. Hopefully we'll see some promising results soon. And let me end with the last example, which is related to a lot of conversation about deregulation, but also permitting. Many of you know that NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, demand that federal agencies, over 50 years, we have to document all these environmental studies and also results. So we have 50 years across multiple federal agencies. These are captured in independent, separated, unrelated databases. So whenever we have to do a permitting, a siting decisions, huge work, time and effort has to go into these permitting studies. AI could really come to your aid. You can actually have AI read all the literatures you can find in Web of Science, and maybe that would be a way to advise you not to pursue certain things. And that's the similar things with this permitting. How do we really streamlining the environmental review? A lot of data already exists. How do we then empowering AI to read using these large language model to process the information and devise the tools for subject matter experts, for federal agencies, for users to then streamlining the review and permitting process. So I think this is really a very different world from the world that we're currently living in, but also a very promising future where we see AI could really drive innovation for the future. So let me conclude with the last slide. So science innovation is really the foundation for the nation's future in economy and in security. A hallmark of DOE's energy portfolio is the successful coupling of basic research and also the applied research along with technology transfer. And we in DOE's Office of Science will need to do our part to continue to expand that knowledge base so we can spur additional innovation for the future. And this vision is only possible through continued investment in basic research to address current technological bottlenecks. But at the bottom of this is really the partnerships. This is a huge challenge. We're racing against the clock to address some of the most significant climate changes. I really struggle some as to how we balance this message about continuing investment in renewable while also increase our domestic fossil investment with an eye towards maintaining a manageable footprint, not to further degrade the climate impact due to decades, centuries of fossil fuel use. This is not a simple challenge, and we're sitting at a very important time in human history to be able to advance our knowledge and hopefully the energy technologies that go with it. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for coming here today. I hope that this provides some useful information for you. I'll be happy to answer any questions if there's time. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Kong, thank you so much for that wonderful talk that laid out the history of DOE, but also the challenge that we face as a society and how DOE, Office of Science, will meet those challenges. I know that some of you may have class at 11 o'clock, so I understand if you have to leave, but we don't normally get the director of the Office of Basic Sciences in Columbia, Missouri, so I want to really use this time to have interactions with members of the audience and dig into some of the information that you shared. I'll begin, but please, if you have a question, you'll see Brandis, who's going to stand right in the middle, and Kelly. Please ask for the mic. When I saw your presentation, I was really struck by how many times you mentioned AI and the tremendous energy consumption that will result from it. And we saw that Microsoft just recently entered into a contract to restart 3 Mile Island, which I think is a great idea. But we're also going to need new nuclear research reactors. And one of the challenges that I see, even with proven technologies with these small modular reactors, is the time that it takes for NRC approval. And so is there a plan at the federal government to help streamline that process without cutting corners, but ensuring that we can meet the energy demands that we know we're going to have to face?
Right, thank you for that question. We in the department have seen these so-called nuclear renaissance come and go a few times, having been in the department for about 20 years now. But I do think that, especially with AI, the example I gave about the streamlining the permitting process, right? So we can actually utilize technologies to help us streamlining some of these permitting regulation-related vetting work. We don't have to start from ground zero if there's a lot of information already existing. And I also think that for nuclear energy, if we can stop building first of a kind, if we can really scale up the production, building 100 of them, that would also make sure the supply chain of building such reactors are robust in the United States. We have a reliable, affordable supply chain in the United States. I think these are some of the things that I'm hoping, as speaking as a private citizen, that the new administration may be able to help the nation in tackling. But I think the fact that if we can use technology to help not cut corners, because safety is of utmost importance to every single citizen, but really use technology to help us streamline the process, accelerating some of the permitting, siting, reviewing process, hopefully, and also working with vendors on supply chain. I think hopefully that will really bring the nuclear renaissance to reality this time.
Very good. I look forward to that. Let me ask if there's a question from the member of the audience. Yes, please state your name and if you can stand.
Yes, my name is Pankaj Srivastava, and my question is related to this nuclear energy landscape, specifically SMRs, that is small modular reactor. I want to just understand whether there is any breakthrough in this TerraPower initiative of Bill Gates, number one. Number two is that there has been some breakthrough in University of Oxford. So can you please reflect on this?
I'm actually not familiar with the specific breakthroughs that you may be referencing. I know that our sister program in nuclear energy are exploring different concepts, including molten salt reactors and other technologies. I know that TerraPower is probably more on the traditional concept. But I think speaking from off the science point of view, we are addressing more of the fundamental materials to be more resistant to radiation, also chemistry for the fuel development, and we stand ready to partner with our nuclear energy partners as they develop additional concepts in addition to the more traditional concepts. But I think nuclear energy will have to be a major part of the energy solution for the future, and we look forward to that.
That's great. We have a question from Dr. Paul Michelli, who's going to ask about neutron scattering.
So thank you for a very nice presentation today. We really appreciate your being here. As we have a wonderful research reactor, which you're going to see today, and we would really like to see a strong engagement with DOE and the capabilities that we have at this university, and of course other universities across the nation. So what type of vision do you have for engaging the resources that exist at other places beyond DOE labs?
Right. So thank you for that question. Neutron scattering is a key part of our portfolio. The most of the facility that we support are resided at DOE laboratories. We're looking for opportunities that we could partner with universities, primarily for workforce development, but also utilizing neutron scattering for research. As was discussing this morning with other leaders at Mizzou, there may be additional considerations given that there is already an existing partnership through the isotope programs that could be put into consideration as to expanding that partnership. And my proposal to the leadership team was to take the idea back to our teams and further exploring that. Ultimately, neutron scattering, I know it's really neutron hungry. The capacity is very limited, and that has also been on our radar in terms of expanding capacity.
Yes?
Hi, good morning. I'm Robin Rotman from the School of Natural Resources. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here. And my question relates to hydrogen. So that's one technology, you could argue it's a storage technology of sorts, that you didn't discuss at length in your presentation. Just wanted to see if you'd like to comment on that. I know that change in administration may change your focus on that, but just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I actually had hydrogen in my master deck because this talk is only for 30 minutes. I decided to focus on energy storage and AI. Hydrogen continue to be a very attractive option, right? So not only as an energy storage medium, but also hydrogen is used in so many industrial products, as you may know, in steel production, in many of the even fertilizer require hydrogen. So how do we produce hydrogen in a sustainable way that limit the climate footprint or the environmental footprint is something that will continue to be of interest, at least to the Office of Science, which is really focusing on the basic research. I don't think the science challenges related to hydrogen use, hydrogen production, hydrogen storage have been solved yet. So I think there's still a lot of room for research, in my view.
Yeah, it's fantastic presentation. My name is Susie Dai. I'm a new Mizzou Florida hire. My lab is on the first floor of this building. So Mizzou has a large portfolio of plant science study, and we have a lot of faculty members here study biomass, bioenergy. What's your view of that percentage of 6.3% of biomass in the portfolio in the fifth slide of your presentation? And what's your future perspective of DOE Office of Science Investment in this perspective? Thank you.
Right, so we have a vibrant biofuels, basic research biofuels program. The centerpiece is this 4 bio-research centers, which have been supported almost up to 20 years now. So we considered biofuels, especially how do we reduce the resistance of lignin to produce really high fuel content from a system perspective will be a very important new direction. The bio research centers have been in existence for a long time, and we're actually in the process of scoping out new directions. I know that someone has just mentioned that some of the Mizzou researchers had led one of the research workshops for us. This is, I think, this continues to be an area that will receive a lot of support, especially I think in growing crops that would not compete with food crops, right? So I think there is a serious consideration of especially resources, whether it's land or water, and crops that can withstand harsher environment, whether it's drought or flood. These are areas that I think continue to well receive a lot of support in our program.
Yes.
You already know me. So since we brought up the topic of food, so as you know, Missouri is an agricultural state, and I also know we have a few of our legislators here, and so they will tell you that there is a lot of concern about rural areas, about access to energy, to data, to basically the resources that other places don't have. And the focus on AI and data centers that are energy hungry may move kind of like the focus away from this type of needs. So is there any thought or joint programs, perhaps with the USDA or other things that you are thinking about for rural energy and the needs?
Thank you. I now remember, I think earlier, the pennygrass example, I actually used that in my congressional testimony to show a partnership with USDA. That was indeed the partnership between Office of Science and USDA that resulted in that significant breakthrough. I forgot who I was talking to earlier today. But I think continued coordination. One of the hearings that I participated in was hosted by the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, looking at collaborations between DOE's Office of Science and other agencies, and USDA was one of the focus of that hearings. After passing the bioeconomy and bioenergy executive order, there are actually a lot of very promising directions for us to pursue with USDA, especially in biofuels and bio crops and bio feedstocks. So rural areas, one of our major emphasis in 25 requests is less so on fuels in the rural area, but more on climate resilience for the rural area. But rural area continues to be a very important focus for us, because if we look at our investment across the United States, is largely concentrated in on the coast for sure. We lack investments in export states, which we're paying attention to, but also the rural area. We noticed that if we put our performers on the map, the rural areas are really not very well represented. So if you have ideas on how we can partner with the rural area better, I'm really interested in hearing from you.
Thank you. We have time for one or two questions. Yes, please. As he's getting the microphone, let let me share with you. As I look in the room, I see many people here who are from the social sciences and the humanities. And I think they're here because energy is so important for our future development, but also energy has created situations where there are disparities between rural and urban, and also created geopolitical strains. And what is a message that you can share with the members that are here that are studying these disciplines about how they can contribute to policies and other areas that your office can benefit from?
So one example that we really partner with social scientists and especially it is in the techno-economic analysis and also resources, because for us to cite certain activities, we really need to understand whether the resources are even available to support it. And not just from a single stage of research, but really looking at the life cycle process from the very beginning of citing some activities to potential local communities, and then having a supply chain that you can then push for some applications. So all of that, and also the acceptance of new products, new technologies, whether the consumers will be able to be receptive to certain breakthroughs. A lot of this should really fold into the policy guidance that we receive as an agency, because choosing research topics is one thing. Being able to see that research all the way to be translated into impactful technologies, there are multiple aspects going into that. I'm just using one example. We were recently talking to a colleague in UK where there's a strong partnership in pushing fusion energy to be a viable technology. And the UK approach is actually quite, in my view, has a lot of merit. Before they decide to site a fusion reactor, they actually have invest tremendous amount of energy and also community outreach to make sure that the community first know about what fusion is, and then being able to provide input whether the community would be interested in partnering with the government in developing fusion technologies. I think those kind of strategy would hugely be beneficial to involve the social economic sector of the community to get the informed, and we want the expert to help us with the resources they can see and advise us on the policy level how we then incorporate that into designing a research program.
Thank you. Question back there.
Thank you for a fascinating presentation. I'm Sarah Humfeld from the Office of Undergraduate Research. We had the pleasure of having a representative from the Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education a few weeks ago chatting with our undergraduates and our graduates about internships, but I wondered if you had any additional advice for our young scholars about training and skills that they should develop while they're here, and maybe opportunities through the Department of Energy.
I really thank you for that question. I myself have really benefited from these hands-on experience when I joined one of the national laboratories. In fact, I was at Los Alamos National Laboratory for about 10 years. And the students that we mentor there, it's very different and hopefully complement the academic training at research education institutions, because they are tackling real-world problems with certain time sensitivity and also some deliverables. So that really gives them a real sense of how conquering a real challenge that could impact the humanity in a very real sense. And I really encourage Mizzou students to get in touch. We have a program called Workforce for Teacher and Scientists. It supports undergraduate internship, also graduate internship associated with our national laboratories. And just last year, we started a pilot to have short-term exchange with international partners. The first pilot is actually with CERN. This is the world's center of particle physics. We're exploring that with Japan and Germany. So these internships would then have like a 4 or 5 weeks of summer exchange program built in, so they can actually further broaden their perspective by interfacing with international students and colleagues, and hopefully the network will last through the lifetime of their STEM career or what the other career they will have. So I'm really glad that you have a chance to talk to ORISE, but if Mizzou students will be interested in partnering with and joining our internship, please do let me know. I really would like to put you in touch with our WDTS program lead.
Time for one last question. Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kamal. I'm from Mizzou Chemistry Department. Thank you for the nice presentation. I've seen that you have talked about the collaboration of AI with science, and I believe that yes, AI will, greatly influence the research, upcoming research in the future. But in my personal experience, I've seen like whenever I ask some question to the AI regarding the literature, I mean, it shows some suggestions. But when I ask the AI about the reference, then it shows the very, very vague references without any base about the research work. So I think if we heavily rely on the AI without looking back what reference it's choosing, so it may give the false result in the research. What do you think about that? And do you think that AI would need, still need some advancement to give, accurate results about the literature and the research? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think that is really what you described, and not to mention the hallucination. They even could imagine some things that don't even exist in real world. It really speaks to the weaknesses of these vendor-supported platform, right? So you really need reliable, structured data to train from. Without the reliable data, your model doesn't mean anything. And also, not only you have to benchmark these models, so you can actually constantly make sure that the whole life cycle of these modeling. So a lot of work needs to be done. AI so far is such an important buzzword, but what's underneath that buzzword is a lot of hard work that different agencies need to partner with industry. Currently, the government spending was dwarfed by industry investment. And without that countering of industry, there's really no way for the government to really be able to hold these industry developers accountable for what they do. And we have to make sure that we have the resources and the subject matter expertise to be not only check the work that the industry partners are doing, but and also make sure that AI can then be used not just for the industrial benefit, but also for every taxpayers, especially for us, speaking for the science and technology domain. We want to make sure that AI can really be applicable to advance our science and technology mission.
Dr. Kung, thank you so much for being here. And let's give her another big round of applause. And we have a special gift for you, and we're gonna pick that back up. But there's a condition, and the condition is we want you to wear this to the next university that you visit and talk about how great it is at the University of Missouri. But thank you so much. We wish you continued success.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, wow. Thank you. Oh, my.
Thank you. Dr. Kung will be here. If you do want to speak with her, please come on up.